Thanks, everyone. If everyone can remember to switch your electronic devices to silent. Welcome to those members of the gallery who've rolled up this evening, and a welcome. We are on live. Is there a live stream going? Yes. Yes? Yes. And welcome to those viewers at home watching the meeting via the live stream. Could I ask you all please to be upstanding? Deputy Mayor Migdal, if you could read the opening prayer.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding, and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Proud, could you read the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders, past, present and evolving.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Note that without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. Item 1 is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting the 25th of June 2024 open at 6:31 p.m. Item 2, apologies, I have nil. 3, approved leave of absence. I have one from Councillor Damien Judici. He's granted the leave of absence for the 20th of June 2024 to the 14th of July 2024 inclusive. 4, disclosure of interest. There was a disclosure of financial interest from the CEO at the CEO's Performance Review Committee held on the 11th of June 24. There were 3 disclosures from the Community and Resource Committee meeting, which are listed in tonight's agenda and displayed on the screen now. Councillors, are there any other disclosures of interest for tonight's meeting? No indication at the moment. We'll keep an eye on that during the meeting. Item 5, petitions. Are there any unverified petitions, councillors, you'd like to present? There is nil. Responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice were published in the minutes of that meeting. So we'll go on item 7 now, and public question time. We've received a couple of questions for tonight's meeting, so I'll invite, is Mr. Rodney King here tonight? Yeah, if you'd like to come up, sir. I'll get you to start off. If you just turn the microphone on, there'll be on the bottom right the silver button there. You see the red light, that's it. And just lift it up a bit. Good, that can stay on now. And if you just start your name and suburb and then your questions.
Yes, it's Rodney King from Gwelup. I've lived all my life in the city of Stirling. Grew up along the beaches, so I have concerns about the boardwalk. Probably there's been a couple of proposals in the past that have been knocked back. Not sure why, but I believe it was from environmental concerns. So I guess my first 2 questions are about that. Is there going to be a full study into the environmental impact on the coastal line there and the dunes? That's probably the first question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Whilst the coastal boardwalk itself isn't on the budget this evening, it does form part of obviously the budget discussions and the corporate business plan, which is why I think there's been a bit of interest in it. The money listed on the budget is specifically for that reason. It's to do independent environmental studies.
Right, okay. The second question was about the outcome. At what point is there a rejection for the boardwalk, considering that there's been 2 proposals that have been knocked back in the past?
Sure, and it has come, I think, before prior councils back in the late 2008, I think it was around then, about 2013. This has been brought about by community interest and by councillors around this table who've brought it up. They've decided to progress it in a different way and do those environmental studies first. At any stage, once that process is finalised, there would be community consultation, and that would be an appropriate time, I think, for this council to review that, have a look at the community consultation, the studies that have been done, and then would make a decision on whether to proceed or not.
Okay. So the third question was about the existing path that goes along there. I know it's Main Roads owned, I do believe, so it's relatively out of scope for this one. But my understanding is that if the boardwalk were to be implemented, that path would still be there and would still be used. So I guess I have my concerns about when people talk about safety, those safety issues will still be there. It's an 80 zone, and yes, I get concerned when I walk along it as well. So I was wondering if there would be, despite what happens with the boardwalk, is there going to be a petition to Main Roads to fix safety in that area?
There's no plan for that. Obviously, that would probably form part of the discussions going forward. I think it's important to know a lot of the safety concerns that come forward from the community specifically are more about the shared use path. So being, especially with the advent of electronic devices, the scooters, skateboards, those sort of things, as well as the lycra cyclists who are sharing paths with dog walkers and pram walkers and those just walking at a leisurely pace. The discussions council has had prior to it being considered has been around the separation of pedestrians away from those, the cyclists, etc. The main interface of the curve on that cycleway that people perceive as dangerous is a 60 kilometre zone. So that has been addressed with speed prior to that.
Right, okay. That were my three questions.
Yeah, thank you. Marion Palmer. Thank you, and it's already on, so just your name and suburb. I might just get you to pull that microphone down a little bit, that's it.
Marion Palmer, Corrine. And my question is what's happening as far as the women's shed? I know there's a lot of interest in it, and there's been precedents in other areas. So I'd like to know about that.
About the women's shed at Gildercliff Street?
One dedicated to women.
Yes, so there is currently one that's at Scarborough Gildercliff Street. I'll get Mr Quirk to provide
Is that
a
the
response.
shared one?
No, it's... Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I can confirm back in 2021, Council did invest some funds in the Scarborough Community Hub. So there is a bespoke women's shed in Scarborough. Also, we know that the Carrinup Men's Shed on Jetta Road there has now got a program where it does welcome women into its shed. We have a Women in Wood program at the Stirling Men's Shed in Balcatta as well. So we're certainly aware that there is interest and it's accommodated in varying ways.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Simon Wheeler. Thanks. And your name and suburb.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Simon Wheeler. I'm from Scarborough. For item 12.2, Gov 1, regarding the CAT's local law, those with the magnifying glass will read in officer responses to consultation results that adjacent local governments do not currently have any CAT containment provisions, and to ensure a consistent approach to governance, neither will the City of Stirling as part of this review. So that decision has already been made, just not by councillors. I did write to inquire what authority officers get to decide policy, and I've yet to receive a reply to that question. I've received responses, but not a reply to that question. And I also note that one adjacent local government, Bayswater, has publicly stated that it's going to ignore the Joint Standing Committee's recommendations when it resubmits its local CATS law. I was told at the committee, and later in writing, that the July 2023 local law consultations that were withheld from tonight's agenda, with an overwhelming majority of the responses also in favour of laws for effective control and protection of cats, would be shown to council when they get to review the local law. But that local law process cannot, according to tonight's report, even consider the wishes of the vast majority of respondents. It won't be on the table. It's already been taken out. So I'll re-ask my question, under what authority can the administration unilaterally limit the options available to council as part of the local lawmaking process?
Thank you. I'll preface it by saying that obviously this has been brought up before, and this council has considered the cat containment laws through significant amount of time through workshops. So that would guide the policy decision-making of the officers, but I'll get Mr Blanchard to answer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks for the question. The officer comment is simply that, an officer comment. This council will decide what is in the CATS local law and how it proceeds when the full consultation that has been conducted over the last few years and the full officer recommendations are provided on that specific local law to council later this year.
Thank you. Mayor Owen, I was watching some old episodes of Pinky and Perky on YouTube the other day, and the AI algorithm got understandably confused and guided me to watching our coastal ward councillors spruiking the benefits of walking to Scarborough, which I thought rather strange, and I was going to ask a question about that, but then I saw the Feels Like Scarborough stick a dot on the voting card consultation, which stated that the shared path on West Coast Highway adjacent to the Bush Forever protected dune system is a fatality of pedestrians waiting to happen. Now, unless a fatality is a collective noun for pedestrians, a better question might be how many pedestrian deaths or horrible accidents have occurred on that stretch of road in, let's say, the last 50 years or so. But that's not my question, because I already know it's nil, and I know that from previous city reports, unless you count the head injuries that I've received driving down the coast road with my better half in the car, commenting on some of the fashion sense of some of the ladies walking past. But my question is, Mayor Owen, who authorised the push-polled, scaremongering options for the Feels Like Scarborough campaign?
I don't even know really what you're talking about, Mr Wheeler. Specifically, what do you think is the scaremongering regarding the shared path?
Suggesting that it's a fatality of pedestrians waiting to happen.
I'm not aware of that at all. Mr Quirk, are you aware?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll certainly provide a more detailed response in writing. We did have the Feels Like Scarborough Community Engagement local convo in Scarborough on Saturday during the markets. There was certainly a question prompter from city officers starting to engage with the community about this proposed project. I would expect, and I'll need to confirm this, the comment that you've seen has been a result of the engagement feedback that we receive from the community as opposed to a statement on behalf of council or the city.
A fatality of pedestrians waiting to happen. I think that's slightly problematic. My third question was going to be, in a year or so, when Mr Hadley is requesting itemised costs of exactly how much the failed Trig Boardwalk debacle has cost us, will that video and push polling be included in the costings, should myself and Mr Hadley live long enough to see an actual answer? All was revealed when $500,000 appeared on tonight's agenda to investigate the feasibility of a coastal boardwalk, which has already been investigated at least 3 times by the city and found to be altogether unfeasible. It is a project that will not pass go, it will not return your $500,000, it will not gain the required environmental approvals, and most certainly will not gain community support, other than from the weak of mind who think that this will magically turn Scarborough into Merimbula or the Kalbarri Skywalk. It's an endangered remnant dune system on a Bush Forever Zone Class A reserve, which is already an attraction. How did we get to the point, councillors, in the current financial climate, where you might for even 1 second consider spending $500,000 on a feasibility study of the unfeasible, having not even had the courtesy to first ask the community if they even want or need it? The last 2 times they were asked, the answer was a deafening no. With an estimated cost of some $3.5million $2012, councillors, this is financial irresponsibility of the highest order. I hold significant concerns with how this process came to be in the first place, but my question is, will councillors vote to remove this item from the budget or the community plan or whatever the hell it is until the community has been properly and fairly consulted about spending millions of ratepayer dollars when cheaper, more logical, sustainable and environmentally friendly options are available?
And thank you for that question and the statement, Mr Wheeler. Whilst I would have to disagree with some of it and say that it was a council at the time that disagreed to progress it. It wasn't because of any environmental studies. I think this is a logical and practical way to progress. There's been several council resolutions since then. In fact, it was your election commitment with prior Councillor Farrelly to actually progress. I think at the time you said...
That is absolutely untrue, Mayor, and if you want to take that back now, I'll be very happy.
No, it was with Simon Wheeler and Councillor Farrelly prior in October 23 said we're in agreement to relook at a boardwalk.
Councillor Farrelly was in agreement to look at a boardwalk. I am not, never have been in agreement to look at a boardwalk.
Okay, let's take it as that. It was Councillor Farrelly's post with you in it, and Simon Wheeler liked
Oh,
it.
right, so somebody else's Facebook post. Yeah, we know
With
how
you
that
in an
goes.
election campaign.
Are you reporting me to the local news outlets as well for that, Mayor Irwin?
It's not up for debate.
Or is it just for those you brand a racist?
It's hypocrisy, Mr. Wheeler.
Yeah, you would know all about that, sir. Thank you very much.
Graham Croft.
Graham Croft from Doubleview. My question is on to do with the boardwalk. I've only just recently been aware of that the proposal for the council to look at this feasibility was on the agenda, and my question is really once that's been undertaken, what will be the process in terms of seeing if the community or the total numbers in the City of Stirling are in favour of such a boardwalk. I won't make any statements here, but I think there seems to be a very small minority in objecting to it, whereas the majority seem to be for it. So if I could have that answer that question, thanks.
Sure. Thanks for that question. Tonight, as I said prior, it's not actually the agenda item isn't about the boardwalk, but it forms part of the corporate business plan. Tonight's agenda item the corporate business plan that includes it is for an amount to be put on there for an independent environmental study, as well as plans to be drawn up. And a significant amount of that money is also for that public consultation. However, the public consultation has already started to happen through things like the Feel Like Scarborough conversation pieces, and that will help inform it concurrently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Roland Hadley.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. At a council meeting approximately 3 years ago, we queried why the city had overspent the motor vehicle panel beating repairs contract by an average of $53,000 for the 5 consecutive years. We have been informed by a former City of Stirling employee that it was common practice to automatically take vehicles with very minor scratches or dents to the panel beating contractor. This would certainly account for the overspend. We now seek accurate information on how many vehicles have been sent to the contractor, S&A Smash Repairs, for the past 3 years and the cost for repairs.
Thank you for that question, and we will respond to you in writing with that one,
Thank
Mr. Hadley.
you. Question 2. For some reason, former CEO Stuart Jardine has been appointed as strategic advisor. We ask the question, why?
Thank you. Mr. Rodich.
Excuse me, I haven't finished yet. Who made this proposal? Was the position advertised? How many applicants were there? Who drafted the job description? For how long is this tenure of employment? Is the strategic advisor paid at consultancy rates? Will the salary be recorded in this year's budget or even next year's budget? And particularly, what strategic issues is Mr. Jardine engaged on? Trackless tram, perhaps, or something more important?
Have you finished now?
Thank you, yes.
Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the question, Mr. Hadley. I made the decision to employ Mr. Jardine on a part-time contract. I will provide further details of what I can share with you in writing as part of the minutes, but it was my decision to employ Mr. Jardine on a part-time contract to provide strategic advice to me, as well as the executive team and the City of Stirling. Mr. Jardine has exceptional experience within this organisation and local government generally.
Thank you. What particular issues are deemed as of
We'll
importance?
provide that rest of the answer in writing, Mr. Hadley.
Thank you. Question 3. With regard to the Mayor's flippant and rude remarks implying that ratepayers do not require a full comprehensive list of details regarding the whole of this trackless tram project, it was not warranted nor appreciated. We do not seek his opinion on this matter. However, amongst the Ewan Street Community Group, there were two people who paid their subscriptions to your Selby gym in 2017, and 2 days later, this gym was closed down.
Mr Hadley, I'll rule your question out of order. Please take a seat, Mr Hadley.
No, they are particularly
Take a
keen
seat,
to
Mr
see...
Hadley. Mr Hadley, take a seat.
I will not take a seat, just listen to the question and then answer it.
I've ruled it out of order.
You
may
have,
take a
but
seat.
try again. They are particularly keen
Mr
to
Hadley,
see full details of
Mr
expenditure.
Hadley, I'm ruling it out of order. Please take a seat. Take a seat, Mr Hadley. I will now rule to extend question time for 15 minutes, so the rest of the people can... Please take a seat, Mr Hadley. Take a seat, Mr Hadley. Leisha Jack, you're next. And just turn your microphone back on, and your name and suburb.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, staff, councillors and members of the gallery. My first question, I'm Leisha Jack from Karrinyup. My first question is, half the video footage of my questions and responses were missing from the video of the last council meeting. The excuse given was streaming glitches that were beyond the city's control. This wasn't an isolated incident. Streaming issues are no excuse for an organisation the size of the City of Stirling in 2024. The live streaming audiovisual CCTV company that the city uses is one of the best in the business. According to their website, they have over 20 years' experience in providing streaming and audiovisual technology to justice, for court cases, tribunals, for Hansards in parliaments, for law enforcement, and for live streaming corporate meetings and AGMs. Big companies like Woodside, I'm sure those shareholders wouldn't like their questions cut. The AV system in the city's Grand Hall, over there, was upgraded by them in January, in time for Australia Day. And the city has their top-of-the-wazza CCTV systems installed, which, according to your annual report, are in accordance with best practice. But with this council room meeting, apparently, an equipment grade will be done in time for the local government live streaming and recording council meeting requirements, which commence on the 1st of January 2025, when live streaming glitches due to substandard AV equipment will no longer be tolerated. So my question is, has the city upgraded the live streaming audio visual equipment in this council meeting room yet to meet local government requirements? If so, when? And if not, why is best practice not a priority for creating accurate videos of council meeting procedures?
Mr Blanchard.
Thank you through you, Chair, and thanks for the question. As every viewer of live TV would know, from time to time, even the best broadcasters in Australia are unable to continue a live stream of live footage, and that is what the city experienced at the last council meeting. We are committed to ensuring that we can provide a full and accurate record, video record and audio record of all council meetings, and we will have that in place shortly. I am sorry that the meeting...
When will you be doing that?
Ms Jack, it's getting answered.
I am sorry that the meeting cut off during your question at the last meeting. It was a technical issue outside the city's control, and I would have preferred that it didn't happen, but it did. And that's why we're working to make sure that we are making best use of the equipment we have and have the technology to support streaming into the future.
Why didn't you replace the missing footage with audio that you recorded?
Thanks, Ms Jack. It was not in anyone's best interest for the governance team to spend countless hours.
There's a little thing
to
on
include
Movie Make
that-
on in Microsoft
It's certainly not that simple, Ms
Office.
Jack. And there is entirely...
I'll do it for you.
There is entirely full audio already available.
Oh, you've done, okay, yeah, but with the missing bits of footage, you could have put some audio.
Thanks, Ms Jack. Your next
You
question.
could have done if you'd wanted to. And you'll have to with the local government reforms, by the way. Now, the boardwalk funding. 20 years ago, 6 small councils controversially amalgamated in Victoria to create a big city of Greater Geelong. One of the major criticisms of the amalgamation was that the central Geelong waterfront and business district was flooded with funding, while other areas became neglected. This appears to be happening with the City of Stirling's overdevelopment of the Scarborough Beach front precinct. With homelessness and so many other serious issues facing our suburbs, why would the city waste time and money planning a beachfront boardwalk across an A-class protected conservation dune area when it was so bitterly opposed by environmentalists and the public and was eventually quashed not long ago? Twice, I now know, I realise. Why? And have those trying to resurrect this unpopular idea read through the public and expert concerns from the last time?
Thank you for that question. This is a different council than the council that would have considered that back in 2008 or in 2013. There's certainly been an abundance of community support to progress it. This council's taken a sensible approach in doing those environmental studies before it progresses it any further, and will consult the community.
Well, at least now the new councillors know they can go back through the records and read it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean Peters. Sorry, just turn it back on. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr Mayor and fellow directors. Thank you for your time and your service to the community. My name's Dean Peters from Trigg, the City of Stirling Coastal Ward. I refer to item 13.2 of the agenda, the City of Stirling Corporate Business Plan, 24-25, page 242. This plan allocates $500,000 to explore the feasibility of establishing the coastal boardwalk between Trigg and Scarborough. The project, as I note, involves community consultation, engagement, and gives consideration to environmental and the economic assessment studies to be completed, which is to be commended, considering the overwhelming community support of this project and the fact that no independent environmental feasibility study has ever been conducted on this project. So, congratulations. My questions, 3. Are you aware that there have been several community-led initiatives to plan, design and construct a coastal boardwalk between Trigg and Scarborough, including a change.org petition in 2019 that garnered over 8,000 signatures? Moreover, are you aware social media forums continually discuss this concept of a coastal boardwalk? However, as of June 2024, no boardwalk has been constructed despite the support of the community. Question.
Thank you for that question, and I'm sure some of that support from those social media platforms probably encouraged the Coastal Ward councillors to put forward this item, which is why it forms part of the corporate business plan.
While we acknowledge and respect our environmental detractors, we also respect the perspectives of the vast majority of our community and other groups. Since sharing updates on the Coastal Boardwalk on Coast Whisperers from December 13, 2023, which often attracts your harshest critics, we have received more than 500 positive reactions and comments. This provides considerable evidence for reclaiming the Coastal Boardwalk, or coastal footpath, I should say, which gives consideration to the environmental impacts and the economic assessment of the opportunity. Mr Mayor, are you aware that there's 25,100 members on the social platform, Coast Whisperers, where residents of Trigg, North Beach, Watermans and the surrounding areas use this platform to express their views on the city planning projects and are currently discussing the construction of the Boardwalk, and why, in particular, the City of Stirling hasn't progressed with its planning and the construction, despite this project being dating back before 2008?
Thank you for that question. Look, I'm not overly familiar with that particular group, I've got to be honest, but I have heard of it. And I know that, the Coastal Ward councillors have been very active and have listened to the community on that page. Again, it's fair to say, I think I mentioned previously, this is a different council than has considered it before. And a lot of the discussions that happened at the workshop following council resolutions did include discussion around the fact that it's a very different environment along the coast now. Scarborough's matured a lot. There's been a lot of investment along that coast. And so the same has happened at Trigg, and the maturity, we feel, is ready to progress it to the next level of that investigation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While this project is modest in comparison to the much hyped developments of Hillary's Harbour, the Ocean Reef Marina development, which garnered strong community support despite the resistance from the environmental detractors, for great outcomes for Hillary's Boat Harbour and a great opportunity for Ocean Reef Marina. Have you considered how the community would respond to further delays if the environmentalists demand that this study is deducted without adopting a sensible approach to conducting an independent environmental and economic assessment of the planning of the future of the Boardwalk, which has never been undertaken, that seeks to boost tourism, enhances recreational options, provides better beach access, encourages physical and well-being away from 40,000 commuters using West Coast Highway?
Thank you for that question. And again, I think the important thing here is that the money that was on the budget is for a few items. It's for a plan for the Boardwalk so that we understand what we're talking about. It's also for the community consultation, which will inform council's decision-making process. And it's for the independent environmental study. And I think that's a really important part. So it is something that we'll take on board anyone's concerns around the environment, and council will then be able to decide if it should progress with it or not.
As I said, thank you very much. It's commended what you're doing, and I'm sure you have the community support. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Ms. Jack, would you like to come up for your third question? It's already on.
Thank you. I've changed my third question.
I didn't know what it was, so that's okay.
Oh, good. It was on the other side of the one I gave you. Is the Mayor, staff and councillors, are you all aware of what astroturfing is? It's a form of misleading and deceptive conduct where business interests start up social media pages, groups, and make it look like they're grassroots community groups, get unwitting members of the community to join these groups, and they're used to, primarily when it comes to developers and development, to manufacture consent. They put all fun sort of stuff on it, get people in, and then they use these sites to push their development things. I would warn all councillors and all staff to please, any group that you join on Facebook and start chatting away on and joining in on, that you really do your homework and find out who these groups really are, because they're rife in the City of Stirling. And I happen to know that there is a group starting up in Perth that will be actually really shedding light on astroturfing. It is misleading and deceptive conduct. It's illegal, and developers have been caught doing it in the eastern states. And that and greenwashing will be a much bigger issue here going forward. So please all be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the short answer is no, I'd never heard the term in relation to that.
Yeah, AstroTurf.
Arnold Davies. Mr Davies, your name and suburb, please.
Arnold Davies, Currinup. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. How much money has the City of Stirling received during each of the last 3 financial years for the sale of land at the Tamala Park and Catalina estates or areas?
Thank you for that question, and we'll respond to you in writing, Mr Davies, with that.
Where has any such money been from those land sales been recorded or spent? Does it appear in the budget?
Thank you, and we'll provide a proper response in writing to you, but effectively Council has resolved that any of the money from those land sales goes into our strategic property reserves to be reinvested into income generating property for the future.
Thank you. Has there been any land sale or land exchange during the last 3 financial years or for financial changes with the Currinup Shopping Centre?
No.
No, thank you.
No, there hasn't. Thank you. That's all I have. Have I missed anyone in the gallery for questions? You can turn it off. Thank you, Mr Davies. Thank you. We'll now go on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillor Andrea Corrado requested a leave of absence from the 29th of July 24 until the 2nd of August 24 inclusive. I've requested a leave of absence from the 15th of August 24 to the 15th of September 24. Councillors, are there any other requests for a leave of absence this evening? Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the requested leave? Move Councillor Christovich, seconder Councillor Olo. Just a show of hands to accept those. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a move and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 11th of June 24. Move Councillor Hatton, seconder Councillor Perkoff, and a show of hands for the minutes. Councillors? All those in favour? Sorry, just missing a few hands here, councillors. That's it. And against? Right, so we have Councillor Reid voting against the minutes. Everyone else is voting for the minutes. They're carried. Announcements by the presiding member. I'll pass over to Councillor Criado if you'd like to make an announcement regarding the Parks and Leisure Australia WA Awards.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very pleased to advise that on Thursday, 20th June 2024, the City won the Community-Based Initiative of the Year for launching the WA Tree Festival and the Strategic and Master Planning Award for the City of Stirling Community Infrastructure Plan 2023-2033 at the Parks and Leisure Australia WA Awards. Each year, Parks and Leisure Australia acknowledges excellence through its prestigious awards of excellence. These annual awards recognize and celebrate the outstanding initiatives and innovative efforts of the people behind the places, which promote the wise use of leisure time for a multitude of social, environmental, and economic benefits to the community. The WA Tree Festival is a statewide celebration of trees, and the natural environment has now been firmly established as the annual local government sector's flagship community awareness and education initiative for trees. The Community Infrastructure Plan 2023-2033 is the city's blueprint for a better future, establishing what our community needs, when they need it, and how we can best deliver it. It sets out our strategic goals and actions to support the city, achieving our vision of being a sustainable city with a local focus. I would like to acknowledge the city's recreation and leisure service teams and parks and environment team for all their hard work. The city would not win these awards without their exceptional strategic thinking and commitment to these projects. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Corrado. And I'd also like to just endorse that and just congratulate the teams. An incredible amount of work goes into some of those items, whether it be the infrastructure plan or the work with the Tree Festival, that really do leave a legacy for the community. And it was an absolute pleasure to be at the awards last Thursday with the teams and see them recognised for their hard work. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. I'll go on to the reports and recommendations of committees, item 12. Councillors will deal with the items from the Community and Resource Committee meeting. Nothing is required to be pulled out, and no alt recs have been provided to governance. Councillors, are there any of these items that you wish to pull out this evening? Councillor Ree?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull out 12.2 GOV1 on page 50, please. And 12.28.1 on page 163, but it's not a confidential, it's just questions.
Sure. Thank you. That's the only ones I've had indication for. So we'll move straight to those. And Councillor Perkoff as Chair of the Committee, I'll go to 12.2 GOV1 if you'd like to move the Committee's recommendation.
Certainly, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the Committee's recommendation on, it's actually on page 51.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Thank you. Councillor Kristovich. Councillor Ree, you opposed, or would you like to just ask a question? Both. Okay, opposed. Councillor Perkoff.
Mr Mayor, just to vote against it, if I can just have some questions, depending on if you want to open up the floor.
No, I don't think the councillors necessarily want to redebate it. So if you just got some questions, I'm happy to go straight to you if it's just questions.
Thank you. It is a bit of a concern that some of these items that, and it was discussed at length the other day, and I do thank the officers for that, especially Mr Mullins, because we did put him under the pump. But I am concerned about some of these that have made changes and we haven't gone back out to the community to get their approval before we put them up. Secondly, it is of concern that, and it has been raised above us, that we're not the only council, that when we actually put up these laws, these local laws, and we advertise them in that, it's after that they go to the department. And then as we've seen in the past, the departments have turned around and said, hey, that law is wrong, which costs a lot of money to change and causes a lot of angst. I'm just concerned whether, and I know it was supposed to be maybe in the new changes on the Local Government Act, not quite sure where this is at, but it is of concern that some of these may not get the approval from the government after we've already done the advertising. So I just wonder whether it's fortuitous of us to maybe advertise these, because we do have a lot of people in their comments, so that we actually garnish what the community thinks and also get a comment back from the various government departments to say that they would or would not support the local laws like we say. I'll just give one example which I raised the other day about the beekeeping. The report by the president of the Apiarist Society was an excellent report, and I must admit, I suppose over the time we haven't had that many complaints, because it's, unless people ring up and say they've got bees, and then we tell them to go somewhere else. But
it was questions.
The thing is that it's on a square meterage, and because the properties are getting smaller, people are concerned. Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor, you weren't there the other day. My apologies for that. People had bees in their front yard. So they had the beehives in their front yard. So when people walk past, there's swarmings of bees. Now, the legislation that we've suggested says it's on a square meterage. And I did raise the possibility of saying...
Is there a question, councillor?
I raised the possibility of having it not in the front yard. Now, that didn't sort of go anywhere.
I don't know if that's directly related to this item, but I'll get Mr Blanchard.
Because it's the beekeeping...
I think part of the answer to your question is in the actual motion that basically says this is progressing these, and most of them aren't new laws, so I can't imagine that all of a sudden legally they're not viable. But I'll get Mr Blanchard to provide some comment.
Before, sometimes things change, and I don't think we've had so many. In one street in Woodlands, we've got 4 beehives in the front of the people's houses.
Mr Blanchard, Are you able to provide an answer to that non-question?
Thank you through you, Chair. Look, there are a number of processes that the city must go through before it makes a local law or changes a local law. The city cannot make or change the local law without giving public notice of the proposed change and giving the community 6 weeks in which to make submissions on that local law. So before any of these local laws change, that opportunity will be provided to the community. That is in addition to the consultation the city has already undertaken with the community. In relation to consultation with the government, the city is required to give both the Minister for Local Government and any other minister who administers an act under which the local law is being made a copy of the proposed changes during that public consultation period so that the government gets to respond. The only body that does not provide feedback on the city's local laws during the local lawmaking process is the Delegated Legislation Committee, which is a joint standing committee of Parliament. And it is this committee that has the power to disallow local laws. So whilst we may have feedback from the government as to what its position is on our local laws, ultimately Parliament can still override those local laws.
Councillor Ree?
Thank you. That is my point, that if we're having one committee in Parliament that says no to us, where was our due diligence going? So I just don't want that to happen again. So while I agree, my comment is still with the beekeeping one, that it is changing, more people having beehives, and whether or not we can adjust to that. And there's quite a few others in there that I think need to be addressed, even looking at the parking. I did suggest the other day about the fact that people who have number plates not from WA, that it's hard for us to get fines. Why can't we just put in our local law, if they're there for more than 6 months and we fine them, then they automatically go to the government, the Department of whatever, motor vehicles, and then they fine them for not changing their licence plates, and then we can fine them. And I know that Mr Mullen's been working really hard to change this, but I just wondered whether or not we can address that in the future, or whether it's needed to be an amendment to this.
I don't think that needs to be in the local law. I think it would just be the procedures. But Mr Mullins?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So that's correct. It's something that we can deal with administratively. There's no need for that to be in the city's local law.
Thank you. And the last one was regarding the trolleys, the shopping trolleys, which I think this is fantastic that we're actually making a stand. But I do believe that it has to come back to the owner of the trolley and taking away who stole what. But
yep.
I'm happy that the staff are working.
Which is why City will commence a legislative process, and all those comments can come into it there. Councillor Thornton, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Does the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation have the ability to share their decisions and determinations when they...
They will certainly write to the City if they have objections.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, they do share their decisions both on the City's local laws and on other local laws through both specific reports and annual reports.
Thank you. If there's no debate on this, those questions have been answered. It's moved. Councillor Perkoff, seconded Councillor Kristovich. I'll put it to the vote. Thank you, and that motion is carried with Councillor Ree voting against. Event sponsorship 12.28.1. Councillor Perkoff as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pass the committee recommendation as written on page 163.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Migdale. Councillor Ree, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I think it was commented on quite a few times at the committee, and again, my apologies that you weren't there, but the fact that...
You don't have to apologise for me, Councillor Ree.
The fact is that, we are a big city, and whilst all of these groups may be needing funding, and yes, it might look good by the water, I mean, the whole of the city needs the money too. It needs to be spread out because it's very, very Scarborough-centric. All our money's going in one pocket. And I'd like to quote one of the councillors'
That's not correct, though.
Well, majority is. I'd like to quote one of the councillors, but I'm sure he will get up and make that comment that he made the other day.
Well, you just said you had a question, that's all, so we're just waiting.
That is my question. Why aren't we doing it across the city? I mean, we still don't have a women's shed. Bubbleview would love to have a women's shed. There's lots of things.
It's irrelevant to event. I don't see possibly how a women's shed relates to event sponsorship.
Well, it's still money.
I can tell you, just in recent weeks, the Westside Balcatta has had BMX championships that we sponsored. Been at the squash in Mirrabooka. There's been fantastic events out there that the city has sponsored. There's been fantastic events throughout the city that have been sponsored. We're actually over in your ward just on the weekend. Myself and Councillor Proud went to the Metso. They had a fantastic event there that we support. We support it right around the city. So, councillors, I will put that. There's no one opposed to it. 12.2, 8.1, I'll put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. We'll now go to the balance of reports. Councillor Perkoff, if you'd like to move as Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the balance of reports as so listed.
Thank you. Councillor Proud has seconded those. I will put the balance of reports to the vote. I think we're just missing Councillor Christovich, your vote. There you go. That is unanimous. Thank you. Members of the galleries, viewers at home, the remainder of the Community and Resource Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. I'll go to item 13, reports for consideration in accordance with section 4.24 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law. The following three items relate to our community plan, our strategic community plan, which is just a minor review, and you'll see those track changes through the report. The City of Stirling Corporate Business Plan for 24 to 28, and the adoption of the 24-25 municipal budget and relevant documents. I do just want to introduce these by congratulating the teams. I think it's important. It's a big body of work. As all the councillors sitting around the table know, there's many Saturdays they sit down. It's that work that probably a lot of people in the community don't see, but there's many Saturdays sitting around going through line by line through budget papers. There's questions that go through to executive on their budgeting, on services and projects that the city does. And at the end of it, council weighs up all of those discussions, their priorities. It's quite interesting for those people in the gallery and the viewers at home. It's an interesting process. Whilst each councillor sits around and represents their local community and fights for what they want in their ward or what they think's important in their ward, they also have to sit around in agreement and support other councillors, and obviously then make decisions that are in the best interest of the whole of the district. Tonight you'll see presented a rate increase of 2.95% compared to about 3.24% last year. Council's discussions did involve a lot of rigour around the cost of living pressures, and acknowledging that whilst this is lower than CPI, the city also in some ways is a business and has to take into account that wages increases around 4%, those costs of doing business, and the inflation, of course, across Australia, which is quite high at the moment. We're delivering projects well above previous budgeted amounts and seeing those pressures and the expectations of community still coming through to council. Significant projects are currently underway with the Terry Tyzack Aquatic Centre and the Hammersley Golf Course Pavilion, which are multi-year projects in the millions of dollars. The next major investment set aside is the $3 million, which will be for the Recycling Centre Balcatta, one of our core business in terms of waste. And in future years, we'll see maybe another $12.5 to $15 million invested to ensure best practice in waste reduction and waste collection. Other key investments I'll just quickly highlight: $650,000 for the new CCTV infrastructure and extension of the rebate program, which was proved extremely popular with the community. $500,000 for the feasibility study, as we've heard previously during question time, for the potential coastal boardwalk from Scarborough to Trigg. Over $600,000 in sponsorship funding to bring major events and visitors across the city. The extension of Hutton Street, as you've seen in the media recently, through to Walters Drive. $1 million upgrade to the Mirrabooka Town Centre to improve safety and vibrancy of the town square, and hopefully to form some of the catalysts to see future development there. Over $500,000 to increase our renewable energy generation through new solar panels and batteries. Over $1 million in city greening initiatives to increase planting of trees and shrubs to meet the city's targets. about $12 million to improve our road network, over $1 million investment in the second year of the Community Grants Program, about $9 million to fund building renewals for local community facilities, and over $3 million in important upgrades for our parks, including playgrounds and equipment. And of course, about another $3 million for things like floodlighting and shelters in our reserves and our community parklands. The minor review of the Strategic Community Plan and the endorsement of the Corporate Business Plan is all part of an integrated approach and a transparent approach to show that the city is accountable. And I think it was recognised, well, I know it was recognised recently when the city received its 10th gold award in a row and the second best in sector at the recent Australasian Reporting Awards event. And it shows that the city has higher standards in financial governance. And I can also confirm the team is often now consulted from the Minister and the Department on best practice for the whole of the sector. I'd specifically like to acknowledge the CEO, Stephen Roddick, and his executive team for their leadership through this. To Michelle Walsencroft and her team in strategy and performance for their work throughout all the integrated reporting and the presentation of the corporate business plan. And of course to Ingrid Hawkins and Dan Richards and their teams in terms of the finance and the budget and all of their work in supporting this council to deliver what I think are 3 incredible documents. So well done. Might have gone early there. Let's hope they get through. So I'll now go to item 13.1, which is the City of Stirling Strategic Community Plan 22 to 32, the minor review. Do I have a move of a motion noting an absolute majority is required on these items? Deputy Mayor Migdale, your motion.
Happy to move the recommendation as is on the board.
Thank you. Councillor Papard has seconded that. Is there anyone opposed to the minor review? Just a question? Yes?
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is that on page, 27, you've taken out the security. Is that because we've changed the word to just community? Because somebody said to me there's no security mentioned anymore. I know we're bundling the rangers, security and parking all in together, but people they're paying for security, but they're not seeing it.
Sure. So that was probably one of the workshops that you weren't at, but it was actually to do with the community team, and Mr Mullins presented to the council on the change in the terms used and went away from the security terms to call them community patrols.
I was actually at that workshop and I do recall, however, that's not answering my question. My question is that when we write the rates, we actually put security, but we're not putting it in the document. So people are thinking that we're not doing security more. Whether it needs just a legend to say it includes might be a bit better.
Get Mr Mullins to provide some comment.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So we have removed the term security because I guess the terms that are used now better reflects the service that we actually offer. The previous security charge is now reflected to be called a community safety service charge. So it just enables the charge to be broadened to include all things community safety.
Thank you. I do recall Mr Mullins making that speech. It was very good. Nearly to the line again. However, for where people are paying for security, we still need to somehow market the fact that security you're paying on your rates it's still there, but we're calling it community safety to be passive, something like that. On page 29, the community perception towards the city as a place to start or invest in a business. Could I ask why that would be taken out? I mean, that was one of our biggest showcases when we asked people to come and invest. When we did it, I don't know, about 5-6 years ago, we did a project of getting small businesses, and that's what they asked people. Why would we delete that?
I don't think we've deleted the intent of that, Ms Walsencroft. It's just different wording.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. No, we've certainly not deleted the intent of that. What we're still asking for, we're trying to measure our performance through business satisfaction with the city. There can be a lot of other different factors about why somebody may not choose to start a business in the City of Stirling, and I think especially at this time with the economic impacts of that, and that shouldn't necessarily detract from the city's performance. So what we are asking instead is that businesses are satisfied with the support that's provided by the City of Stirling instead.
Councillor Ree, any other questions?
Interesting way to look at it. On page 26, we've deleted community satisfaction with access to health and care services within the city. And I know that was roughly talked about because we don't have the child health clinics, we don't have a lot of things. We don't run the hospitals, and we don't run a hospital. However, I thought it was agreed that the access to health was really important, especially when we look at our report that we've done on aged care and what people want and younger people coming in to the city. So I'm not quite sure why that was deleted, please.
Ms Waldencroft?
Again, that's just a minor change, and it's around the performance. So you can see that we're still aiming to facilitate and advocate for the provision of a range of quality health services in the City of Stirling. That's still our objective within the Strategic Community Plan. However, because the city isn't directly providing those healthcare services any longer, we're not measuring our performance against community satisfaction with the provision of health services.
I know we debated that before, and I'll leave that debate again. On page 166, we actually have in there that an advertisement to this effect will be placed on the city's website and all notice boards in the city administration centre, recreation centre, libraries, etc., with regard to the strategic plan being modified. How can we approve? This is a good governance one. How can we approve tonight changes to this plan when we're saying we're not going to tell the people about it until August 24? So aren't we going the other way? Shouldn't we be consulting the people first about the changes, then come to council? Because according to this, we're approving it now, and if the public turn around and see the changes and go, hey, I believe we should be doing health, what are we doing here?
Thank you. Ms Waldencroft?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. According to the state government's integrated planning and reporting guidelines, a desktop review does not require community consultation. We are only asked to do community consultation during a major review of the Strategic Community Plan, which we did 2 years ago. So these minor changes are not changes to the intent of the plan. So we're continuing with the direction of the community and council from the major review, and what we're doing is minor administrative tweaks around aligning, performance measurement and things like that.
Mr Mayor, I don't know why you would consider this minor. Some people took umbrage at saying they're minor. This is quite important for the community to be involved. My point is still the same.
I think the changes are certainly very minor in this.
In the interpretation, I don't know. Some things we've deleted could be consequential. But the point is still, how can we approve something now, whether it's minor or not, and then we go out and ask the public what we think? I just feel we're going back to front, as I said in the last one, but I'll leave it to you. You're what?
Thank you. So there's no one opposed to this, so I will put this item to the vote. Move Deputy Mayor Migdale and seconded Councillor Papart. Thank you. That is unanimous, councillors. Item 13.2, the City of Stirling Corporate Business Plan 24 to 28. Absolute majority required. Do I have a mover of a motion? Deputy Mayor Migdale is happy to move. Councillor Lagan is seconding.
I've just got a couple of questions.
Sure. Is there anyone opposed to this? Councillor Ree is opposed. Thank you.
I'm happy to move, Mr Mayor, as is on the board.
Thank you. Would like to speak to the motion, or you happy to leave it? Councillor Lagan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, page 242, just a quick question on the budget allocation for the 500,000 for the coastal boardwalk. Will that budget allocation also look at the possibility of storm damage and coastal mitigation for any boardwalk that might be there but could get washed away?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Also, page 245, it's a figure of 250,000 for the Scarborough precinct. My question through you, Mr Mayor, is will that be funded in any way or in any part by developer contributions in that area, given that we are looking at developing accommodation down there.
Thank you. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ligon. No, not that 250,000. The DCP would not cover that.
Thank you. Page 250, 1,014,000 for sports field renovation. Is that 1,014,000 for the financial year 24-25, or does it carry across to 28?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mayor. That is for the 24-25 year, Councillor Ligon.
And further to that, is there a notionality that that figure might be the same for each of the following 3 years, or will the first set of expenditure and renovation end at that point because we will have done the work?
Thank you. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a couple of elements to that, Councillor Ligon. There were some initial set-up costs for equipment, etc., but certainly in terms of the ongoing maintenance to keep the reserves at that level, that ongoing spend would have to happen.
And sorry, what were just to clarify, did you say equipment?
Yes.
So it was partly purchase of equipment. We're not going to be using contractors.
Ms
It'll be
Hawkins?
in-house.
Mr Murphy?
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So the spend will be a combination of our own staff and contractors. I haven't got the breakdown in front of me, and there is some equipment up front to purchase. But this is, if Council approve this is an ongoing programme, an annual programme. We'll bring it back to Council every year, and the amounts will be adjusted. But essentially, this is the expected amount for next year, and will carry through each year, for, until Council decide not to do it anymore.
Thank you. And from page 250, there's a figure there of 1,106,000. It is for city greening initiatives. Can I just clarify, within our agenda tonight, it talks about a spend on tree planting of $450,000 in the financial year just gone. Does that 1,106,000 include the 450,000, or is it additional too?
Thank you. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councillor Ligon, the figures in the document are purely for the 24-25 year.
So the 450 would be additional, repeated for the next financial year as well?
Ms Hawkins?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, in terms of that, as we discuss with Council each year, the plan and budget, we would bring forward the figure that was required and discuss that with you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. Councillor Ree, you're opposed?
Thank you. A number of reasons. One is with regard to page 251 and the money allocated for the upgrade of various buildings. Is that including the sporting one? Is that including the federal government grant to upgrade the women's facilities?
Thank you. Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, that grant has not been confirmed yet, so we have certainly submitted an application, but given the competitive nature of that grant, we haven't assumed that we will receive the revenue.
So through you, Mr Mayor, does that mean that the money in this particular section, whilst I'm very cognizant of the fact it would be spread across the city, would be actually used to upgrade the women's facilities while we're waiting for a grant, perhaps? Is that, I don't know where we are in a priority, I keep saying it, are we
I don't know what women's facilities you're relating to.
Toilets.
Toilets. So if the
toilets and the change rooms, that's what we've been pushing for, which is what I think.
Sure. So if those specific toilets and change rooms are in the budget, as items in the budget, then they will be there. If the grant comes in, then obviously that money will be returned.
I did ask for a program, a staging program, to upgrade all the facilities that we own for regarding the women's toilets and change rooms, particularly the ones in the middle of an oval. And I believe that was considered by Mr Quirk and Mr Murphy, but it didn't strategically come down to what places. It's just on a stage one. Like I said, you do solar power on all our buildings, just a stage. But we haven't, unless it's actually falling down, I don't think it's actually recorded. My point is this part of our stage one? We're slowly going through to upgrade, which is what's the intent of the council discussion when we had it.
Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes. So that is certainly what we are doing. So we have prioritised the projects in the 4-year capital works program based on community demand. Many of those are driven by sporting club demand and indeed women and girls participation. So the projects that you see in the 4-year program, any change room upgrades include upgrades to facilities to make sure they are either unisex or female friendly.
I do believe we had a major discussion about unisex that I won't go into again here today, but issues such as Celebration Park, and I'll just say that in particular, because there's a lot of paperwork and that on that, but I won't talk any more about that one. With regard to the $500,000 for the coastal boardwalk, I did ask for a copy of the report that was done in 2007, 2013. Still haven't received it. I think we'd be remiss of this council to approve something without looking at why we didn't do that. And there's various reasons, and I was there for them, and they weren't the same in 2007, they weren't the same in 2013, but I couldn't locate a copy of the report. I think it's important that we look at those reasons before we go forward. That's one thing, and it still hasn't been provided, and under the Act we should be provided with all the information before we vote. Secondly, under the coastal management strategy of the state government, I will be challenged on this, but I think it was something like $3 million they were giving towards councils who had coasts, towards various things they wanted to do. Some of it was coastal erosion, some of it, I think it come under the planning domain, if I recall, or the erosion, anything else they wanted to do in the coast. So have we tapped into any of that money? Also, the Environment Minister a couple of years ago, when they were putting out this big coastal strategy, he actually said they were doing a study all across the coast of the vegetation and in particular the reduction of the sand, the water level along the beach because of erosion. Now, I haven't seen that, but mind you, I'll say I haven't asked for that either, but I have asked for the others.
Councillor, I don't know where you're heading with this on the corporate business plan.
My point is, I think it's important that if we make a decision, especially if it's a lot of money, we could build quite a few women's sheds with that money. I'll just make that comment. But proper women's sheds, not rooms. But I just think that if we're going to make a decision, especially that amount of money on consultation, there's a lot of work already done out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think we have to be mindful of we're spending other people's money here and it needs to be spent wisely, and we need to make sure we've got all the information we need at this time. And I can't see it.
Thank you. Well, look, the only thing I can tell you is we'll make sure you've got a copy. It was a fairly brief and it was an internal document, the original report. The environment, there was no environmental report done. It was an internal officer report that was actually supportive. Officers at the time were supportive of the boardwalk. It was council that made the decision not to progress it. In terms of funding, yes, there are funding pools available. In fact, we've just delivered the Meddams Pool ramp. That was part of a state government commitment. And as you're aware, a lot of the CHRMAP processing that has been done is so that that funding can now be accessed for future coastal hazard mitigation along the coast.
Yeah, the environment one wasn't done by the City of Stirling, to my knowledge. It was done by state government when they were looking at how much money needed to be given for the CHRMAP. So it's a bigger report. It's on the whole of the coast.
I was talking about the boardwalk. So, councillors, is there anyone else who'd like to discuss the corporate business plan? If not, as mover, Deputy Mayor, if you're happy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy.
Good. Then I'll put that to the vote. Moved Deputy Mayor Migdale, seconded Councillor Lagan. Thank you, councillors, and that is carried with Councillor Ree voting against. Now go to item 13.3, the adoption of the 24-25 municipal budget and relevant documents. And there are quite a few relevant documents to go with this one. Deputy Mayor Migdale, you'd like to move the recommendation?
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. And obviously that recommendation, that's up. Yes. And seconded Councillor Perkoff. Is there anyone opposed to this item? Councillor Lagan, you're opposed? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wrote everything down on this occasion to make sure I didn't miss any points that I wanted to make, so bear with me. The city goes through a vigorous process each and every year where council are provided with reporting on all projects and services that our city provides. These are transparently reported through our integrated planning and reporting. We get to make informed decisions on whether we increase or decrease service levels, whether we fund more projects to deliver our strategic outcomes, and whether we ensure sufficient reserves for future projects or potential hard times. Now, we do all this whilst considering the cost of living pressures our ratepayers are facing, along with the cost pressures that we as an organisation are also facing, such as increases to staff wages and increased utility charges. There are also the challenges of increasing material and labour costs for our projects, and in some cases we've seen 20 to 30% up from previous years. And we have still managed for consecutive years, year after year, to deliver efficiencies that mean we can absorb some of these increases to deliver a rate increase below CPI. This is a great and sensible outcome for our community. We must note that reducing rates by too much has a compounding effect that will leave a legacy for years to come of decreased funds to deliver basic services and infrastructure, i.e., a 1% increase roughly equates to $1.5 million, but over 10 years, that's $15 million not spent on our roads, our lighting projects, our footpaths, our club upgrades. I would like to thank our officers for working with council over the last few months to reach the highest and best outcomes. I wholeheartedly support the adoption of this budget unreservedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I too echo Deputy Mayor's sentiments, and I also would like to thank our staff and also councillors for working through this. 7 years down the track of working through these budgets, I probably enjoyed this one the most. Very challenging it was, indeed. To be able to reach a number of 2.95% is exceptional. Look, there's something to be said about healthy buffers in budgets, whether it be your corporate budget, and some of us will know that from our corporate lives, or your home budget and so on. You start understanding what prudent budgeting and prudent spending is all about. If people, it's easy to forget what this council did when it had to do it, because we had that healthy buffer. The years of 2021, 22, there was a total rise in the budget of 0.9%, meaning that on those years, if you split it, it was less than 0.5%. At the same time, the city pumped in $43.2 million into the economy and the city as a whole. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Mr. Mayor. That wasn't easy to do. That is actually not possible to do unless you've thought about these things ahead. We haven't done the crazy things. We haven't done 7 or 8% and so on and thrifted all that away. This is, as I once again say, just a prudent way to work things, to go forward, and I thank everyone involved once again.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it would be remiss of me to go through the budget process, disagree with the rates figure that was put forward, and then get up tonight and agree with it. So I'm not going to. That's why I'm standing against it. Before I start, and it would be remiss of me not to say this, in the interim, can I thank the city staff, especially our Director of Finance, for all the work you've done on the budget. But I represent ratepayers, not staff, so I'm here to talk about the things that I believe affect ratepayers. Mr. Mayor, the famous words from Oliver Twist in the Charles Dickens work, "Please, sir, may I have some more, please?" come to mind. We want more from our ratepayers. I stand to vote against the budget as the levy increase suggested is, in my view, an ignoring of the community and the worsening economic situations many of our ratepayers are facing. I could support 1 or 2% increase in levy charges over the previous charge, but the increase is, I suggest, is unwarranted. So to be clear, I'm not suggesting a zero rate increase, as some around the table have suggested I landed on, and our ratepayers will still pay the rates they paid in the last round. They're not paying zero. The city still gets its documented $301 million to do all its works and programs. Even the West Australian, in its June 18th with Laura Newell's story, which was titled "Spare Us the Spin Around Council Rates Hikes," she commented, "We all know that we're in a cost of living crisis and inflation is biting." I received in my mailbox today Labor pamphlets from members of Parliament that have told us they're giving us $700 back for power. Why? Because of cost of living. It's a hard time for people at the moment. I received another one from the member for Maylands. Same thing, supporting West Australians in a cost of living crisis. They're actually, at the federal level and the state level, able to say, hey, people are doing it tough, let's give them a hand. That's what I'm suggesting here. Ratepayers are not going to pay no rates, just increased rates, when that increase is unwarranted in my assessment. So the Department of Local Government, WA, in its budget timeline and considerations fact sheet stated, keep in mind, that's us, considering alternative sources of funding and consider economic conditions when we do our budgeting. And what are those economic conditions? The most significant in Western Australia is the increase in rental costs, up 2.1%. When we bake in a 3% increase to our ratepayers, those ratepayers who own homes and rent them out will bake in that 3% into rent charges for those who are renting in Western Australia. And that's just a fact. That's how people pass on the costs. Keep in mind there have been 13 increase in interest rates since 2022. So let's look at the facts from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Living cost increases, LCIs. Over 5 key LCIs rose between 0.7% and 1.7% just in March of 2024. Over the 12 months to March, LCIs rose between 3.3% and 6.5%. So that was an increase in health insurance, food, power, water, petrol, transport costs, gas. They've all spiked. And they're not my figures, they're figures from the Bureau of Statistics. The National Accounts data from a few weeks ago showed that personal savings are down 9.9%. Disposal income is down 7.8%. We're asking ratepayers to give us more. Productivity is down 7.8%. No matter what we do tonight, ratepayers will still have to pay the minimum figure of $985. Yes, they can break it into portions. They still have to pay it. It's not as if they're paying zero. Now, there were some in the debate recently when we were doing our budget workshops that were saying, but it doesn't matter, it's no big deal. $12 is nothing for people in our municipality. Well, it is for some people. $12 added to all the things that have gone up is an increased cost. And we as elected members should recognise that. There are others around the table who said, but we need money for the staff to deliver our 200 services. That staff element of our city budget has ridden $5 million every year for the last 4 budget cycles. That's over 1,000 staff and a staffing cost of $98 million in the last budget alone. So in budget 2019, our staffing cost was $77.7 million. The last budget, our staffing costs were $98 million. Now, some elected members talked about other councils are lifting their rates by 5, 6, 7%.
You don't have to. We'll wait and see when he finishes.
Very soon. 5, 6, 7%. And I said at the budget reviews, don't model yourself on local governments that can't manage money. It's the one thing Stirling does well. So just in this agenda, you can find in the document $100 million in reserves under management and $10 million on interest just on those reserves.
Councillor, that's time. So I will rule to extend because I know you're getting towards the end.
Yep.
So, sorry to interrupt you. You flow.
It's all right. Are you voting or?
No, I just ruled to extend.
Okay. We also had a carry forward, that's money we didn't spend, of $30+ million. Carry forward. Of work we suggested we were going to do in the 200 services we provide. That's with the $98 million staff spend. In 2024-25, our budget lifts from $280 million to $301 million. And we want to give ratepayers the choice, or we want to say to ratepayers, you should pay us more. Ultimately, Mr Mayor, I can't support increases when our city needs to find efficiencies and better revenue avenues, other than asking constantly ratepayers to pay more. We have strong reserves. We now need to lead for our ratepayers. We need to recognise their economic challenges. We need to consider our tough economic conditions, state and citywide, and we now need to support the role that we take on. I can't support the suggested increase, but I have said I would have supported 2%. I want to lead for our ratepayers. What will everyone else around the table do?
Councillor Dudek.
Yes, thank you. I regretfully speak against this item tonight, though I would like to note that I'm very much supportive of much of the work that the city plans to do in the upcoming financial year. I do, however, wish that more of an effort was made to reach consensus on a lower rate rise, which would have been agreeable to all us councillors and ratepayers. Here at the city, we have very competent financial management, which has meant that our revenue from commercial and other sources has increased significantly. Even if we decided to completely freeze rates, our revenue would have increased by 13.4 million compared to last year. This, I believe, would have rightfully acknowledged the cost of living pressures that many of our residents have been struggling with in this past year. Much investment has been made by the city in technology, ostensibly to create efficiencies. However, I don't believe we have been able to realise these yet. I've put forward some motions on notice which will be read when we get to item 15 of tonight's agenda, which will hopefully help us identify these efficiencies in preparation for the 25-26 budget. However, as it stands, I will regretfully be unable to support this item.
Thank you. Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, obviously, I'd like to thank the officers, the staff and everybody for the robust discussions we've had during this whole process. And one of the things that was of interest to me during the whole debate was how, on the one hand, councillors are saying, you know, rates needed to be kept down, but on the other hand, during the budget process discussions, they were coming up with all these ideas of how extra money could be spent, even on things that really the city didn't need to do. For example, I think an item of $80,000 came up, just let's do a trial for a battery, which we don't have to. We're not in the business of trialling batteries. So, you know, it's interesting from that point of view. And even though some councillors wanted to see the rates come down, they didn't actually offer up any of the projects in their wards, even though there's a huge amount of money being spent in every ward, saying, well, we're happy to take $1.5 million off the table to drop rates by 1%. So none of that came up. Everybody said they wanted more in their electorates, in the areas, and everyone said there's more things that needed to be done. And as we know, during the course of the year, people will come up with notices of motion for more things to do, that we need to find more money on top of the budget. And that happens every year as well. And I sit there and scratch my head and go, well, you know, you said things are tight, but now you're finding more ways to spend money. Now, okay, those things are important, and we run a really great business. And I think it's important to note that in the City of Stirling, in 22-23, it was 3.74, 23-24 it was 3.24, 24-25 it's 2.95. In each of those years, CPI inflation was 8%, 6%, 3.6%. So we're actually spending less and delivering more. And there's been a number of times during the last year where certain wards have had to come and say, you know what, our project needs an extra $200,000 or $300,000 because of the cost escalations. That's just the cost of doing business now if we want to actually do anything. So I think that's important. The other thing is, you know, people say don't look at other councils. But you know what? I looked at other councils' rates. There was only one council I found that was increasing rates by less than us, and that was Joondalup at 2.9%. So what we're saying is that the whole of Western Australia, all of the local councils, all of the elected officials supposedly don't care about cost of living pressures because they're increasing rates by 7, 8, 10, 12%. So we're down at 2.95%. We're below the cost of doing business. If you were getting a wage rise of 2.95% now in 8% CPI, you'd be saying, hey, you're ripping me off. You're actually taking money off the table. You give me less purchasing power. So I think they're important considerations to take into account, is that we are at a very, very low rate. I think during the COVID pandemic, we gave, what, $20 million back to... Sorry, 43? We gave $43 million back to the community during COVID because we were in a strong financial position. Now, we actually at the time, I believe, said we were going to scale that money back and put it back into reserves. We haven't done that. We haven't taken that money back. We said we were going to. So we spent $43 million and didn't get it back. They're all reasons why we are very, very careful about what we do. We know that very prudent. Anything that we try and get in our wards, we're very careful. Now, if you look at again the capital infrastructure across the wards, there's huge amounts of spends in Balga ward, in Osborne ward. I noticed that the Coastal ward isn't getting much on the capex budget in 24-25. Interestingly enough, I think the Lawley ward is only getting 3%. So they obviously need nothing in the Lawley ward, which is interesting, which is great. I mean, I wish we needed nothing in our wards.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, go.
I think it needs a response. I think we're always chasing the best for our ratepayers.
But of
unlike
course,
Coastal gives
I think it was in jest, Councillor
In jest, but I'm just trying to point out that we're spending a lot of money. And look, when I say 3%, obviously over the course of the forward estimates, that increases and it balances out for everybody. So, things change from ward to ward. I really think we've done a great job. I think coming in at 2.95% at such a low rate relative to everybody else. And, I hear, they're giving us electricity rebates. But you know what? The state government is also increasing the price of electricity at the same time. So they're saying, you know what, we're going to increase the price of electricity, increase the price of water, increase the price of all of the things that we see. Plus, by deception, we'll also give you. So they're putting one pocket and take out the other. And you're saying that they're looking after you. So
30 seconds.
All I want to say is that I think we all did a great job around the table. I think we came to a very good consensus position. I think, let's be honest, on the initial start, the rate was slightly higher than 2.95%. We actually lowered it. So I think we're very considerate on that. I think, the projects that we're delivering going forward across all wards are needed. And I think there's going to be more need. And we offer a lot of social services, whether it's through homelessness, whether it's through domestic violence. We provide all that. That's not a service we need to provide as local government. So if someone said to me, drop the rates by 1%, let's not provide domestic violence services to women. Let's not provide homelessness support services. We're in that space.
Are you on a wind-up, Councillor Christovich?
Which is good.
Excuse me, can we...
So we do a little...
Quiet in the gallery, thanks.
So we do a little bit of everything. And I think we've done a great job to land here, and I'm definitely going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Thank you. I look at page 34 in the agenda tonight, where we paid the agency costs to date of 1.4 million. That was just agency costs, 1.4 million. This doesn't include consultants and doesn't include legal. We're spending $100 million on staff. We want to spend $500,000 just on consultants, which I know that we have already got a whole lot of information that we don't have to spend that amount of money. It is a concern with the staffing, which we've raised around the table many times, limited on the amount of staff we have, and the cost factor of staffing. In some businesses, you get X amount of money and you have to get the staff to work within it. We don't seem to do that in here. We seem to say, well, if you do this project, we need 10 more staff. If we do this, we need more stuff like that. With all the internet and all the facilities, RMS, which has cost us $20 million we could build a new building with, all of these were supposed to save us staffing costs and make it better for the community. That hasn't given us that. And I think when we look at the community's comments on things...
I don't think that's correct, but I'll continue to debate. I understand the point you're making, but it's not correct.
Well, look at the call centre reports. That's one. And that's where the community sees it and that's where they feel it. And that's where we were supposed to make sure, because that's the heart of our work, is people who see something wrong, they ring the call centre. And what did they have? I think it was, I can't remember now, 40% of them said they couldn't even get anywhere in 5 minutes or something. You know, that's our coalface. That's what people see. And that's when they pay their rate. They say, I want to find someone that can talk to me. I want to see where my money is. And it's not there. And we're not achieving that with some of the systems that we've paid a fortune to put in, which doesn't show the accountability we're supposed to be doing. I do believe in having human people. I do believe in having staff, and rather than a whole lot of internet. However, this isn't going, we're not going forward with some of the money we're spending, which should be better spent on upgrading the facilities we've got across the board, like I previously mentioned. And I think that's important. I am still concerned about the staffing, but I'm also concerned about what we prioritise. I take on board Councillor Kristovich's comment about what's going on in the infrastructure projects without mentioning any wards, because that would be ward accounting, and I wouldn't like to get into trouble for that one. I have enough things to get into trouble for. So I think it's important that when people looking at it, wherever they are, they don't want to be the cash cows for Scarborough, just for example, because everybody knows what goes on in Scarborough. But the poor people at Triggs and Waterman, they're not getting as much as Scarborough, and that's unfair to them. So I think we need to somehow be more fair across the board. And we did make that comment the other day when we looked at funding and grants. But it's how the people perceive it. Every day, there's something about Scarborough. Not always good, but there's something about Scarborough. And yes, it is great. It's my local beach, so I know it well. But it is important that we are doing this budget for all of our 250,000 ratepayers, residents, because they are who we work for, not the other way around. So I think the staff, we've said it before, but I think this budget is not addressing what we need across the board. It's picking things out and putting too much money on certain things and the rest of us not. So while I think it's very prudent to go down to 2.9, I don't think that it's actually good that with the way we can do our money, and Ms Hawkins is the best banker I know.
She's not a banker.
Graham Redden was excellent too. But I just think that we could be doing this better. We're getting so many projects like the refurbishment of Careen, a couple of the others and Bennett Park that went out crazy.
Is there any other suburbs anyone wants to pick on tonight? So between you, keep going, Council.
But it's serious. I mean, you know, Celebration Park, that all those things, they shouldn't have got to that stage. We're employing consultants, project managers, we're looking at it. But from this table, we're only approving down the bottom and seeing what happens at the top and what people complain. We're not delving into operational issues, but there's something going on that these things aren't matching. And I think we're wasting so much money. So I'm concerned about the consultants, I'm concerned about the wages, and I'm concerned about the perception by the community of what's going on the local level and what's going on in their backyard. And I do like to say that I'd just like to acknowledge James, Louise and their team for getting down and dirty with the community and finding out exactly what people don't want. And I think that we can go forward with. So I think that's a good start.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Corrado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am in support of the budget as it is presented on the screen tonight, but also because as a council, we debated this over several weeks and several workshops with the officers. Just in response to some of the comments made by my colleagues at council, carry forward amounts are actually quite normal in any budget process for any organization of this size. And also to remind my colleagues that some projects could not be completed due to supply and labor shortage reasons in the past few years due to the impact of COVID. So while the carry forward amounts are reflected, projects have also moved ahead, have been moved forward to future years, and unfortunately, the cost of delivering these projects has also gone up. Council has not rejected or deferred these projects or taken them off, but has in fact agreed to progress these whilst keeping the rates at a very minimal increase. So that is an indication of an organization that deals with its financials in a very prudent and pragmatic manner. Increase in investments is just that. It's an increase. It could also be a decrease. There have been years in which, in spite of very safe investment strategies that the council has adopted, it's not an assurance that we will always get an investment increase or we will get an income from our investments. Therefore, dipping and depending upon investments of future years and dipping into our savings to meet current expenses is not the most financial and prudent way to deal with our expenses. So, having a minimum wage, rate increase in order to meet the capital expenses and projects that we have planned, which have been distributed across the city, not just based on favoritism or preference for certain wards, but actually after proper deliberation of which wards require renewal of their assets, in keeping with our community strategic plan, in keeping with the greening of our city, in meeting our sustainability goals of reducing carbon emissions. We have considered a number of different factors while coming up, with the priority projects that have been outlined in the budget, and in setting the rates at the minimum possible level that we could in order to deliver on these projects in a sustainable manner. So therefore, whilst I respectfully take on the comments from my co-ward councillor and Councillor Lagan that yes, a number of families are experiencing a lot of difficulties. The average increase we are looking at is about $37, if I'm correct. And I do apologize to families who will find it hard, but if we do not support this tonight, the $37 that we are charging today might actually cost a lot more in future years, because we will be compounding. First, we will be losing out on the interest that we are accruing while the rates are high from our current investment strategies. Plus, we will be pushing the can down the road and paying for the very same refurbishment and capital expenses at a higher rate in years to come, where the increase may not be under 3%, and we will be forced as a council to make decisions that will go into higher figures, maybe 6, 7, or 8, which we want to avoid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, are there any other? Councillor Papard indicate?
Just a quick clarification. Councillor Lagan said the increase is $12, but Councillor Criado said $37.
Yeah, I'll get Ms Hawkins to clarify what they relate to.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Papard. The average annual increase to ratepayers would be $37.22 at the 2.95% increase. If we were to reduce that down to 2%, that would be a reduction. The annual reduction would be $12. So I think that's where the two figures. But $37.22 is the annual charge for the 2.95.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, is there anyone else who wishes to debate this item? If not, Councillor.
Well, look.
Would you like to talk?
I would like to have a comment on the budget, please, Mr Mayor. Unlike one or two other councillors, I do believe this does cover all wards and it's a very solid budget. No budget's a really good budget, there's no doubt about that, but this is very solid indeed. I do support it. We had a lot of workshops. We worked hard to get to this 2.95 level, and we certainly have come up with a very solid and prudent budget. Councillor Perkoff loves the word prudent, but it is. Look, this budget provides sufficient funding for the 2024-25 period and ensures that the current levels and numbers of services are maintained. And that's really, really important. There's been continued upward cost pressures. We know that. They are continuing to provide those services and facilities and to maintain those too. We are getting value for money. I'm pretty convinced that we are getting value for money. The finances that we have, the financial outcomes we're coming up with are very much aligned to our strategic priorities within the council. The city has a debt-free policy, and its major capital investments are funded by the reserves, which is great. We have a long-term financial stability objective, and this annual budget does accommodate all the planned activities in the 2024 financial year. So I think it's actually very good. I do understand the hurt out there in the community, but to keep it below 3% is really good. It's one of the lowest, and we are the biggest council in WA and maybe one of the biggest in Australia. We are supporting all the services. I'm pretty happy with what's happening in the Hammersley ward over the last couple of years. And I know that without putting things on the budget, that we, Councillor Perkoff and I, do get some small things done, like road infrastructure, pedestrian rails, maybe the odd shelter or two. So there is some flexibility still outside the prescribed budget finances. So it's not just about roads, rubbish and so forth, roads and waste. It's about building the renewals, the parks and the playgrounds, renewals, $9 million, parks and playgrounds, 3 million, shelters, another 3 million. You can keep going on and on and on, but what we're doing is we're servicing the community to get out and about, to be healthy with their mental welfare and physical activity. We're providing all those beautiful facilities that they're entitled to, and we must have funding for that. Look, I just wanted to briefly talk about what the council also does in the way of providing for people with the way that they might pay their rates. We talked about this last rate period. The council is probably one of the best councils in offering smoothing, ability for smoothing, and that is providing ability for people who can't pay a lump sum to do a weekly, fortnightly or other payment. Yeah, I've seen that. And also late payment interest, around about 5%. It's really quite low. We have the financial hardship set up. When it comes to even getting an extra bin, you might only have to pay $20 for an extra green bin or $45. We provide so many benefits to our community. All the 12 passes that you can get to go to the disposal site for rubbish. Neither council does it, well, our council does it better than any other council. So in talking about this budget, it is a very solid one. It's not too wanting of for it to be better. If we look at the residential 5.2 cents in the gross rental value, and then the commercial and the industrial, nothing goes above 6%, and the only way it goes up is it was a vacant land. So the general minimum pay for our rates is below $1,000 at about $948, and the lesser minimal $789, and then we have the average, of course, which I pay at a bit higher, but I'm prepared to pay that because I live in a great suburb. My friends live in great suburbs that are very well accommodated for with services and amenities. So this is a very solid budget, a very prudent one. I think the officers have done a great job. They've listened to our feedback and all the workshops. We've managed to get it down below the 3%, and well done to everyone. Thank you for all the feedback that was allowed for us to give to you and the feedback the officers gave us, and I think it's a good outcome. So yes, I will support this budget.
Thanks, Councillor. And with that, I'll go to Deputy Mayor to close debate.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And I just want to thank Council as well for illustrating true democracy when working through this budget process. It was push-pull all the way over several months of robust advocacy for different projects, balancing that up between councillors who wanted 0%, 5%, 8%, 1%. It was all over the place, and I feel that democratically that we reached the highest and best outcome only through robust communication and debate. We've had every opportunity to weigh in and give our sentiments. At the end of the day, when you stop and think about it, certainly in my neck of the woods, I constantly feel in every part of my life the benefit of living in the City of Stirling. I constantly enact with the City of Stirling when I walk out my front door and walk along the footpath and take a walk in the park, when a mean, when I go to the swimming pool and do a few laps or go to the gym, regardless of what I do in my neck of the woods, I am constantly feeling the benefit of a city that is managing their business and managing their business well. I can tell you now, for less than 70 cents a week, which is the rate rise we are discussing this evening, well under the CPI, which means we have shrunk the business effectively, which is rarely heard of. I feel very, very comfortable in a 70 cent a week increase, if only I put the challenge out to federal and state to be able to deliver over and above. I'm very comfortable with supporting this budget. Again, I thank officers, and I do hope you all realise how amazing it is. Well done to all.
Thank you. And with that, to close the debate, it is moved Deputy Mayor and seconded Councillor Perkoff, and I will put that to the vote, noting an absolute majority is required. Thank you, and that is carried. I will read out the vote. So for we have Councillors Corrado, Ferrante, Hatton, Kristovich, Migdal, Olo, Papard, Perkoff, Proud, Thornton and myself. And voting against the budget is Councillor Dudak, Lagan and Ree. Thank you. Item 13.4, we'll now move on to the proposed submission to inform preparation of Perth and Peel Urban Greening Strategy, page 342. There is an alt rec noting on the back. Deputy Mayor, you're moving the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the officer alternative recommendation for this item, please, with the amendment on number 2 to include and Minister for Agriculture and Food.
And that is seconded, Councillor Ree. Is there anyone opposed to this? No, I will put that to the vote. That is carried unanimously. Thank you to the officers for preparing that. Item 13.5, proposed submission on draft operational policy 1.13, significant development pathway, public interest considerations. Councillors, Councillor Ree, you're moving the motion. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Lagan, is there anyone opposed?
With a question also.
Yes, did you say you had a question, Councillor Ree?
Yes, please. I think this is a really good initiative that we actually do write. I just hope we write lots more. One thing is, could we possibly do a media statement on this? Because people are getting more frustrated every day that, you know, telling councillors about developments, and we actually don't have the power to say yes or no to virtually anything anymore. So it would be good if we could do a media statement, because I believe it closes on the 19th of July. So, and I know it's school holidays, which is also not good, but if we could make a media statements to tell people they could make a comment if they wanted, not to us, but to whoever, that's one thing. Also, on the bottom of page 357, it says the city applies discretion in planning decision recommendations, including developments determined under delegation recommendation, blah, blah, blah. I don't think we really do. I think that might be misinterpreted, that we actually do make decisions, and it's only the way it's written, and I'm just cautious of the fact that when we go out and do our media statement that we make it quite clear that, you know, we don't have a lot of say in things. That's mainly my point. And also if we can, whether we do it online so the comments come back to us, I don't know, you know, that comments could come back to us but make a submission. I don't know, you have to wordsmith that. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to take that on board, and the CEO's here, so he's heard you, and have a chat to the officers. Councillor Lagan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, look, I'm not in planning, it's not my gig, but interesting read 11B, significant development pathway. My question through you to officers is, reading this and reading the first section as well, and the action that happened during COVID, can officers explain to me, is there an opportunity for developers to bypass the city, the city planning initiatives and the city design review board and go straight to 11B without the community being involved?
Ms Lambaka, I don't think it's as easy as it was.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. It is possible through that pathway if it meets the criteria as listed in the regulations.
So further to that, my question to you would be, it would not be in the city's interest to have developments above $5 million, $20 million, an example would be the one in Dianella, going straight through without the community being aware of it. What will the city do to make the community aware when we do have large applications for development that may have an impact on the community that's not desirable?
Ms Lambaka?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. So in the instance where we aren't the decision maker, what we often do is we'll engage with the community. So we undertake consultation. That that's exactly what we did with the solid waste depot development application. So we would do that through that. We haven't had any applications through this pathway. We did have it through the previous SDAU. There was an application in Chewett Hill, and the community were engaged through that process from my recollection.
And just finally, through you, Mr Mayor, can the city refuse, even if it doesn't get notification until after it's gone to the relevant planners? Can the city refuse an item if it hasn't come to us at all?
Can we provide advice?
No, can we refuse?
Chris?
Generate our own report and refuse?
Well, it would be a recommendation of refusal. We could provide that recommendation.
That's the only pathway.
That's the only pathway.
Thank you.
No other questions? Then I will put that. Move Councillor Rees, second to Councillor Lagan. That is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. 13.6, tender for the Organisation of African Communities in Western Australia, OACWA facility upgrade. 362 is a mover of a motion for this. Councillor Dudek. It was in their ward. I was going to the ward it was in, but are you moving
Happy
a motion?
to move, yes.
Councillor Criado is happy to second.
Some
I
questions.
know they used to be in yours, but they're there now.
Question?
Questions?
Question.
Yeah. Which corner of Nollamara is it?
Is no. I'm getting question here. The report may say that. I'm pretty sure it is in the Balga ward. Let's get this right. Can someone give me confirmation? Which ward is it in? Nollamara Community Centre. Which ward is Nollamara Community? It's Balga ward. Thank you. I am sure. Okay. We have some questions. Are they just questions? And do we need to go behind closed doors? Councillor Perkoff, what's your question?
Thank you, Mayor. Just an easy one. Is this the same OAC? Let me see the OACWA. Is this the same group that was running and organising the Jambo Festival locally? It is. So just going from there, we used to host that festival for about 2 or 3 years, and then another council took it from us. I'd like to see, and it's not a financial question, that if we're going to be spending money, and they are located in the city of Stirling, see if we can gain this back. It was a fantastic event, by the way, Mr. Mayor.
So whilst we provide a host, as in a reserve where they can run the event, the organisation with other groups coordinate the event, and their African communities obviously are all around Western Australia, so they often move between Canning, Wanneroo and the city of Stirling.
But we can still try.
Yeah, certainly, and they have their home, one of their homes, they have a hub in Girraween as well. Councillor Lagan, your question?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Mine is financial. I want to talk about the tender document.
So can I have someone move that we go behind closed doors?
It's only 1 minute. It'll take less.
Well, we're already in the middle of debate, so I don't see.
Yeah.
So I'll move to go behind closed doors. Thank you. Councillor Papard, seconded Councillor Dudak. Just a show of hands to go behind closed doors. That is unanimous. Sorry to those viewers at home, we have to switch you off. Sorry to people. Thank you for that brief moment. Whilst we, and welcome to those viewers at home as well, councillors. Just to give an update, as we do have Mr Davies in the gallery, and there might be viewers at home. So whilst we were behind closed doors, we were discussing some tender items. We did jump ahead to item 18, which is matters behind closed doors, and dealt with them, so we don't have to go back behind closed doors. So I'll now go back on the agenda to item 14 and 14.1, which is a notice of motion for Councillor Ree. Councillor Ree, your motion.
Yes, please. I'd like to go to the alternative recommendation by staff on page 371, please.
Thank you.
That
And
the
is there a...
council supports that.
That's right, yep, it's there. And Councillor Thornton's happy to second it. Is there anyone opposed? There's no one opposed. Makes sense. So let's put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at next meeting. Councillor Dudek, I think you have one.
I do. Yes, I've got two. First one, that the city considers removing the ongoing yearly fee associated with having a 240 litre red bin and a 360 litre yellow bin from the 25-26 financial year onwards. And the reason is written there, and you can have a read during the week perhaps. And another one.
Free waste.
Free waste. Well.
Councillor Dudek.
That a report be presented to council prior to the 25-26 budget planning cycle on the long-term financial plan to identify A, efficiencies realised from our technology investments in the 24-25 budget, and potential increased commercial revenue and the use of our reserve accounts in order to lower the impact of rate increases in the future.
Thank you.
Going to approve the budget next year?
I'm guessing they'll have to go up to cover your free waste bins. But anyway, is there any other notice of motions? Councillor Ree?
Thank you. The council supports officers obtaining samples from a random selection of water fountains throughout the city, city-managed parks and reserves for submission to a NATA-accredited laboratory for analysis, testing and analysis of the samples to be undertaken to measure compliance with the Department of Health standards of drinking water tests. A report of the findings to be presented to the Planning and Development Committee at the meeting scheduled for the 12th of November 2024, dealing with the results. And my reasons are up there, and quite a few councils have actually undertaken this as well, and that is to ensure that the water quality coming out of the fountains, of which we're responsible for, is acceptable, but also showcases that the water coming from the state government may not be.
Yep. Motion's clear. Are there any other notice of motions, councillors? No future notice motions. Item 16 we have nil, and 17 we have nil. We have dealt with 18 matters behind closed doors. So that brings us to item 19, which is closure. I declare the meeting closed at 8:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
See you all in Canberra, everyone. Safe travels. Have fun.